You were born into a story already in motion. Long before your first breath, the stars burned for billions of years. They collapsed, exploded, reformed. Planets came and went. Galaxies stretched out like threads of silk across a dark, expanding canvas. No one was watching. There was no audience. There was only motion, chaos, silence. And then, somewhere, hear a breath. Yours. You didn't ask for it. You didn't sign anything. You opened your eyes one day, and there it was. A world pretending to make sense. But it never did. You grew up in it, this fragile system of rules and rituals, clocks and calendars, stories and identities. You were taught what matters, what success looks like, what failure means. You were handed the manual of the living, written by those who were just as lost as you. And all the while, beneath the noise, the silence remained. The silence of a universe that doesn't clap when you win or weep when you fall. A universe that does not love, hate, judge, or reward. It simply is. That silence unsettles us. So we fill it with work, with belief, with explanations. We build meaning like scaffolding, clinging to it because the alternative terrifies us. The thought that none of us has a pre-written meaning feels like standing at the edge of a vast, black sea. No lights, no signs, just us. But what if that is not something to fear? What if that silence isn't a void, but a blank page? What if meaning isn't found, but made? There's no cosmic script that explains why you were born in this era, to these people, with this face and these hands. No divine appointment that tells you what your purpose is supposed to be. You were simply given this, a body, a mind, a moment in time. And what you do with it is up to you. Not in the way motivational slogans suggest, not in the shallow language of anything is possible, but in the terrifying, beautiful, inescapable truth that there is no one else coming to write your story. The universe has done its part. It brought you here. Now it's watching, not with judgment or hope, but with silence, as if to say, what will you do now? Will you hide behind comfort, behind distraction? Will you spend your days chasing validation from other lost creatures, hoping to be told they matter? Or will you face the silence? Will you accept that no meaning is given, and that is precisely what makes your meaning real? This is the threshold, the beginning. The moment when life stops being something that happened to you and becomes something you are building moment by moment. No instructions, no guarantees. Only time, breath, and the chance to answer a question no one else can answer for you. Now that you're here, what will you do with it? At some point, someone decided to name the day. They looked at the sky, watched the light shift, saw the shadows crawl, and gave it a name, then another and another. They counted the moon, traced its arc, noticed the pattern, and from that, they shaped what we now call a month. Then they chased the sun across the seasons, recorded its rhythm, and called it a year. But none of this was real. Not in the way the sky is real or the way your breath moves when you're alone. Time was not discovered. It was invented, built to tame the chaos, to keep our minds from falling off the edge of the infinite. Because when you stare into forever, something inside you trembles. So we broke it into hours, minutes, seconds. We trapped the endless in numbers and lines, convinced ourselves that life moves forward like a train on tracks, logical, linear, controllable. And then we worshiped the very thing we made. We chase clocks. We panic over birthdays. We fear being late to work, to success, to love. We measure our worth by how efficiently we consume the hours we've been given. We treat youth as a currency and old age as a warning. But time doesn't care. It doesn't hold grudges or grant extensions. It doesn't rush when you're excited or slow down when you're breaking. It simply moves, not forward, not backward, just on. And still, we try to fit meaning into its frame. We ask, am I on time? Am I doing what I should at this age? Am I late? Too late? But the truth is, there is no cosmic timeline, no universal benchmark, no perfect moment waiting for your arrival. That pressure you feel to have it all figured out by 25 or 30 or 40, that's not time speaking. That's fear. Fear that you've fallen behind in a race no one is really watching. Fear that you missed the boat, the chance, the sign. But there is no boat, no sign. There's just you. Here, now. Breathing in a moment that no one has ever breathed before. You are not early. You are not late. You are right on time for your own life. And maybe that's the only truth worth holding on to. When you finally begin to understand time, not as something that pulls you, but something you stand within, the world around you begins to shift, quietly, subtly. You start to feel distance, not just from others, but from the comforting illusions that once held everything together, the timelines, the meanings, the narratives. And then, without warning, it hits you. You are alone. Not in the shallow sense, not in the way people talk about breakups or empty rooms, but in the deeper way, the cosmic way, the kind of aloneness that comes when you look up at the stars and realize they've been burning long before you existed and will keep burning long after you're gone. It's not loneliness. It's perspective. The kind that makes your spine tighten when you truly let it in. That Earth is a floating rock in a dark ocean with no walls. That your name has never been whispered by a galaxy. That the universe, vast, unblinking, will not remember your job title, your last tweet, or how many people followed your story. And yet, you are here, feeling everything, worrying about the future, carrying regrets from the past, hoping someone sees you. You are the only part of the universe, as far as we know, that knows it exists. And that knowledge is heavy. Because the more you understand how small you are, the more unbearable it becomes to pretend that any of this is normal. The rituals, the metrics, the rush to achieve something that won't matter once you're dust. You begin to ask quieter questions. Why does anything matter? What am I really trying to prove? Who am I trying to impress? You scroll through lives curated and lit and feel a disconnect, not because you envy them, but because you start to wonder if anyone really knows what they're doing. Because here's the secret, most people are too distracted to feel the emptiness. But when the noise fades in the silence of night, in the breath between chaos, it finds you. The realization that you're walking through an infinite space with no map, no instructions, and no promise that any of it will add up in the end. And strangely, that's the beginning of something honest. Because when you stop pretending that life owes you meaning, you start looking for what you can give it. You stop expecting the universe to answer you. And you begin to speak into the silence not as a child begging for answers, but as a conscious being offering something back. A presence, a voice, a decision. And that is not weakness. That is power. Once the silence sets in, once the illusion of cosmic significance fades, most people do the only thing they know how to do. They run. Into noise, into goals, into other people's expectations. They chase career ladders, collect titles, compare vacations, scroll endlessly through lives they're not living. Not because these things are meaningful, but because they're loud enough to drown out the deeper question. The one that waits in stillness. What now? It's terrifying, isn't it? To imagine that no one's coming, that there is no script, that the universe won't give you a mission, and no divine hand will place a crown on your head. Just you, your breath, your choices. And yet inside that terror is something strange and beautiful. Freedom. If nothing has to mean anything, then everything you do, every kindness, every sacrifice, every act of courage is a declaration, a rebellion against the void. That's why the smallest actions sometimes carry the most weight. Like the father who wakes up at 5 a.m. to pack a lunch for his daughter, not because it will be remembered forever, but because love doesn't need an audience. Like the nurse who holds the hand of a stranger in a hospital bed, not because she's changing the universe, but because for that person, in that moment, she is the universe. Or the man who walks away from a toxic job, not knowing what's next, but knowing he can't betray his own soul another day. These moments won't make headlines. They won't be carved into stone or launched into space. But they are real. They are meaning, created, not assigned. And once you realize that, once you stop waiting for permission to matter, everything changes. You start to choose differently. You stop chasing what impresses and start moving toward what feels honest. You no longer perform for the crowd. You speak softer, but with more truth. You give your energy not to what is expected, but to what is needed. And slowly, you begin to see the absence of cosmic purpose is not emptiness. It's possibility. Because in a meaningless universe, you are the meaning-making machine. You are the artist handed a blank canvas no one else will touch. And how you paint it with pain, with love, with presence is entirely your choice. That's not despair. That's liberation. Because now your life is no longer a search for the right path. It's a creation of one. At some point, you realize the truth that most people are too afraid to admit. The world does not owe you anything. Not love, not happiness, not success. There's no promise that your efforts will be rewarded. There's no guarantee that your life will go the way you expect or that it will be remembered long after you're gone. And yet, in that same breath, you understand something far more profound. You don't need the world's approval to make your life meaningful. You don't need the validation of others to know that what you do matters. The light you carry doesn't need to shine for everyone. It just needs to light up your own path. When you stop waiting for someone else to write your story, you begin to write it yourself. You stop playing by the rules that were never yours and start following the rhythm of your own heart. It might not make sense to anyone else. It might not lead to fame, wealth, or the kind of success we've been conditioned to crave, but it will be real. It will be yours. There's a quiet power in this, a kind of grace that comes with walking through life knowing you don't need to impress anyone. That peace is not about meeting a standard. It's about knowing who you are and standing in that truth, no matter the noise outside. Think of the mother who teaches her children with patience, not because she'll ever get a trophy for it, but because she understands that the values she instills are more lasting than any accolade. Think of the writer who never hits the bestseller list, but continues to write because the act of creation, the process of sharing their thoughts with the world, brings them peace. Think of the friend who always shows up not because of what they might gain, but because they simply care. These moments may never appear on a grand stage. They may not change the course of history, but they hold a kind of eternal truth because they come from a place of authenticity. And when you start living from that place, when you stop waiting for the universe to give you meaning and start creating your own, everything changes. The absence of preordained significance is not an absence at all. It's an invitation. The freedom to create, to shape, to define your own purpose. And so you walk forward, not with the burden of expectations, but with the light that is uniquely yours. Maybe the world doesn't notice, maybe it never will, but in your heart, you know that what you've built is real. You know that the meaning you've created is as solid as any foundation. This is your life, and that is enough. You don't need to be remembered by history. You just need to know that you were alive fully, honestly, with every breath you took. And in that, you've done something extraordinary. You've given meaning to what could have been meaningless. And in the end, perhaps that is the greatest victory of all.